Hello and welcome. This is Eagle Eye 621, and what you see behind me is a maximum efficiency spawner farm. I'm going to divide this video into three basic parts. First, I'll explain to you the rates and the increase as to why this is better. Then I will show you how to set up a spawner farm generally in case you want to make sure that yours is set up to get the most amount of mobs that you can. And then last, I will show you how to upgrade your current farm in order to maximize that production. And I will have some timestamps down below just so you can skip ahead to whatever version you want. But before you do that, let me take a moment to ask you to scroll down and hit that subscribe button. Most of you still are not subscribed, and it really does help the channel out a lot. So first, let's talk about the rates and what's going on behind me. Typically, with your spawner farms, you drop 2 stone blocks on top of the spawner to make sure that none of the mobs spawn up there and get stuck, which would reduce your overall rates. But that in itself actually reduces your rates pretty significantly. In terms of the skeletons that you see behind me, the difference of having those 2 blocks there or not there, in my testing, was 482.8 with the 2 blocks and 507.2 without them. So you're looking at about a 5 or 6% difference depending on your testing, which does really add up very quickly. Let me also throw in a shout out right here and some numbers to Ilmango, who did something similar but using water instead of the method that I used, and I'll explain why I chose this method instead. He did a bit longer of a test than I did, and his difference was 506.5 for the non-blocked version and 483 for the blocked version. Again, about that same 5%. And in terms of your XP, if you remove those blocks, you get 4,100 per hour, and this is for hard difficulty, which comes out to just under 100,000 XP per real-life day. Now, that said, there is some bonus XP to be had here, and that comes in the form of the bone meal. But just in terms of what that XP means, it means you'll go from 0 to 30 in about 20 minutes, and you'll go from 27 back to 30 in a little under 6 minutes for your enchantment rates. Now, in terms of your bone meal drops, if you expect 507 skeletons per hour, you can figure with a looting 3 sword you'll get about 3 bones per skeleton, which is 1521, and when you convert that into bone meal, you get 4,563, which is 109,500 per real life day. And in terms of that bonus XP, I'll link to a farm that converts the bone meal into bamboo, and that bamboo converts at 1.5. And if you use that as part of a furnace farm, you can actually burn enough items to generate an extra roughly 1,700 XP per hour. So your real life XP per day comes out to just under 140,000 as opposed to just under 100,000. So now let's look at what's going on and set up a farm generally. And you can see I have a little setup right here with just some blocks to be able to measure things out. Now, from your spawners, you can have mobs that spawn out 4 in each direction. So you're going to want to go out like this, 4 in each direction, and it's at that 5th line, just like this. Let's make that green to make this nice and symmetrical. You're going to want to make sure your wall is on this 5th line, and you're going to want to make this square, just like this, and of course continue that all the way around. Now, a mob can also spawn on top, and because this is a too tall mob, you do want to give it the extra height, meaning that your ceiling is going to be right like that. And of course, you're going to bring this out and make a box that just links up with the rest of them. And then in terms of underneath, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you don't have any mobs within 4 down. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Had to throw some counting with Eagle Eye in there. Now, however, you want to make sure that the mobs and no part of the mob is in that range. So you want to add another 2, and that's for the skite of the skeleton. And then 1 more, which is where your water is going to be. So this is where you want your floor. And then you can make a giant floor just like that. Let's take a step back so you can see the different patterns and what you're looking for. Now, I will also note that technically, if there is the same mob within 4 of the above, then it also will block the rates. So while this very infrequently comes up, because usually you just have solid blocks above, you do want to make sure that on this rate right here, which is 1 above your ceiling, it is also blocked off so you don't have any skeletons stand there and destroy your rates. And then there are lots of different ways you can set up your collection system. I just like putting some water in all 4 corners, and it flows very nicely into the center. And then the base you want to have in here is completely up to you. You want to have some sort of an enchanting setup. You do want to have the ability to combine your tools or to disenchant some enchanted bows for that extra XP, which I did not take into account. And then obviously a little safe way to kill them. Most of the time you'll have some sort of a collection system under there as well, but you can set that up however you'd like. Now, in terms of what's actually going on, that is happening right here. So you can see we have some tripwire hooks and some tripwire that is above the spawner, so that when a mob spawns on top, like this, it triggers this redstone line into a comparator clock. This is set on 4 ticks just to not waste arrows. And then these arrows are shot at the mob in order to knock it off. So you can see that happening just like that. If I can place it correctly. And this makes sure that none of the mobs get stuck on top. Even if they spawn towards the edge, the arrows will still hit them as they wander around slightly, or most of the time, even if they spawn on the edge, the original arrow will hit. But this is why we have it on a clock and not a single pulse, just in case there's more than one up there. And you can see that it is a 4-tick clock, so we're not wasting too many arrows. And arrows, of course, are pretty easy to come by. If you're on a skeleton spawner, you get so many that you're usually trashing them. And by doing this and not blocking those spawns, it allows you to increase those rates significantly without a lot of difference. Now, I did talk about Ilmango doing something similar and doing a lot of testing on his own, and I will link to that video. And what he did was use water streams instead of using a dispenser with an arrow the way that I did. Now, I like the arrow version a little bit better. You don't have to worry about the arrow itself breaking your tripwire. If I can hit it, you can see that it just triggers the dispenser. It doesn't actually break it, and that means that you can use this system for smaller mobs as well, like spiders, if you put that tripwire just 1 down. Also, if you have a multi-spawner build, I believe that this way is going to be a lot easier to set up, as the arrows can fly a decent distance, but in order to try and angle all the water properly, that might cause some issues. Of course, the downside to the arrow issue, which you don't have to the other issue, is that the water is unlimited. For the arrows, you will have to refill them or set up a chest to refill them, or somehow automatically set this to refill them as well. So I can show you how to convert this now. If I go into spectator mode, we can just phase down through the floor a little bit. And this will show you the materials that you need to build it, as well as setting this up. And this was a real life spawner I found in the world, so we're as authentic as possible. Let's switch back to creative mode, and let's get rid of all of these items. Now, this is your current setup, if you have one. I do have one extra ceiling height in here just to make it a little easier for me to show you what's going on, but otherwise, this is your setup. Do take into account, however, that if you're using this method, that some of your skeletons may be damaged. So if you're not funneling them into a place where you can kill them, if you're putting them into a water stream to bring them up and drop them for a one-shot kill, then you are going to want to change how far you drop them, or some of your skeletons will die when they impact, which negates the whole purpose of this. Now these are the items that you're going to need. You're going to need 2 tripwire hooks. You're going to need 7 string, a dispenser, and this cannot be a dropper. It does have to be a dispenser. You're going to want 10 redstone, a comparator, a repeater, and these are optional but highly recommended to get an extra hopper and some chests, and then as many arrows as you can muster, and you'll obviously be able to get even more. So now we can break that, which is what we had before. And I'm going to use the head height, and you can see pick 2 sides. So right here is one of them, if I'm lining this up properly. And now we can add some string and bring that string all the way across. And you can see that we can connect that to a second tripwire hook. So you can see they are going off when that's tripped. And now you can also pick a side, and we're going to dig out some blocks just like this, because you're going to want to make sure that the dispenser is at this same level, just like that. Make sure not to bring this dispenser inside your walls. You want to build this all outside that spawning range to not reduce the chances of any spawns not happening. And give yourself a little bit of extra space back here just to make this a little bit easier. And we're going to want to have a comparator clock that's going to be coming from this side, although it doesn't really matter. And we want to make sure that we pull a redstone signal from this block. You can see that that will be lit up when this is activated. And then we can have our repeater going back in this direction. And you're going to want to be on 4 ticks. Of course, you're going to want it to be there. And then bring this around. And now you can see that we have a 4 redstone tick comparator clock. We're going to dig out a little back here, because we are going to want to put our hopper facing into this dispenser and put our double chest back there. You can obviously add more chests and more hoppers in order to have even more arrows, and then just absolutely fill this up with as many arrows as you can find. And again, you'll end up with way more arrows than you need just from your spawner. And that's all there is to it. Your current collection system, as long as it's not based on dropping them so they have half a heart left, is already going to be perfectly fine. If you funnel them all to one side or towards the center where you're standing to kill them, that is also fine. You probably won't just have lava down there killing them all, because that defeats the whole purpose. And you are all set up. Every so often you will need to come and refill this chest, although not very often. Or you can have a more complicated system if you want, with some minecarts set up from wherever you are to bring those items up here, or your water streams. And now if a skeleton, shouldn't have deleted that one, but if a skeleton spawns on top of, nope, still no, there we go. The skeleton spawns on top, it will get shot off, and just like that, you've increased your XP rates, your drop rates, and everything by about 5% with really just a handful of redstone. Not really a whole lot of extra work, but it does significantly increase those rates, especially earlier on in the game if this is what you're using primarily for your XP source, or what you've built your base around to get those quick repairs and enchantments. If you found this video helpful, I would appreciate a like. If you found it interesting, maybe even tell one of your friends. And for more videos like this, do be sure to subscribe. I'll also note that YouTube has given me a join button. If you're interested in becoming a member, there are some perks that are offered, which is right next to that subscribe button if you want to click on that. That would also be greatly appreciated. Thanks for stopping by.